Welcome. Welcome. I'm early. I was a little late yesterday. I'm a little early today. So we'll just wait a second. This is how everyone comes in here. Welcome to, this is March 1st. So this is the first time monthly live stream, Monday, Friday live stream is done on the first week. I think this is because I'm wrapping up the way, as I mentioned in the card, we're redoing, like I mentioned last couple of weeks, where I'm in the process of framing and rebranding the Friday live stream, how we're going to do it. And I don't think we'll have any, we'll have the live stream versus the non-live stream or the messing around. I have to figure out how to, we have to rebrand it. And I think it's going to start in, if not by March, then by April, definitely. Maybe on April, beginning of April. Maybe I even have an April Fool's event. It's here. I know this is never going to be a good thing because it's always at that weird time. Oh, there's someone. That's the strange. Again, there's no preset planned discussion topic today because no one asked any things. It's going to be by the seat of my pants. So what happened this last week? You want to know what happened last week? Well, I'm in my second week of classes. We had the second week of classes. The teaching the Constitution class. We finally started in the Constitution class. We went in and dealt with the basically the start of the Philadelphia Convention up until basically beginning of May and of convention to the 14th of June, just before where they cover the Virginia Plan, the introduction of the conference and identity, the setting up of the conference of the Philadelphia Convention, and then the presentation and discussion of the Virginia Plan. Okay, led by Madison mostly, and other people. It was introduced by Rutledge, but not Rutledge. It was introduced by Edmund. The governor of Virginia, and then Madison kind of took over, and then you had responses from Rutledge of the South, of Virginia, and some go back and forth between Sherman and Madison about the question of who should have a statement. So therefore, the convention first week was kind of dealing with those issues. The Philadelphia Convention, of course, where they're looking at the Ferrand's edition of the notes, which has not only Madison's notes, but all the known existing notes of by the people attending the Philadelphia Convention. So it's a very interesting account. I like using the Ashbrook Institute's old site, not the new site. The new site it has too many bugs in it still, and not everything works in it. The old site was very good. This is what happens when you change internet companies and change IT teams. Stupid. So that's the Constitution course, the creation of the American Constitution. And the other course I'm doing is the undergraduate course, Introduction to Politics, which is we're starting with the second class deals with political. The first class is really the introduction and the question of what is the political and things like that. You can see some of those kind of in the videos. My previous time I've taught the course in my what do you call the? Oh, come on! What is the word I'm thinking? Not what do you call it? The things when you? Okay, I'm losing the word. Brain freeze. What is that? What do you call that? I'm gonna look at the things. Yeah, playlists. In my playlists, I go check the word playlist. The playlist. I have an introduction, a whole cup 2 years ago. I recorded the whole course. and the recordings in it, and you can find it in the playlist for the Introduction to Politics playlist. You can see the course. The course follows the same structure. Again, I'm recording it again because I want a new recording, and I think it's going to be different this time because the old recording was in the old classroom, and this classroom is a different classroom, and it's a different situation. So we'll see what happens. This week, we just dealt with the issue of the household and the way the political community the emerging of human political nature and how this works in terms of first this creation of the family units, the interpersonal relationships between husband and wife, but also then the interconnection between parent-child and kinship relationships and the origins of these things. So we set up the things, and I kind of got bogged down by certain things. I normally would like to maybe get more make more advancement than I did here. I think I went into more detail on certain things, so therefore that was that. So that was the week of teaching. I just today I got a notice about something a conference I did last May, and they got the page proofs, and I spent most of this morning correcting page proofs on basically the Greek and Roman contribution to constitutionalism, that I gave in May last year. You can see that conference again. You can go check on YouTube. There is a recording. There is a kind of a broken recording of me giving that paper, and I kind of give a talk about it too. So therefore, you can go check that out on my YouTube channel. The video presentation of it. What am I doing now for this? We'll see. I'm crossing fingers, and I'll be giving another talk in May about this, about the Constitution. I'm saying my paper this time, my presentation this time will be on the things that pre-constitution, in other words, the things necessary by which a constitution requires. In other words, the pre-constitutional things, and the assumptions that the things, a material that needs to exist prior to a constitution in that sense. So that is going to be a paper for a conference in May. My Budapest conference, I have to start. I will have to start writing my Budapest paper. Well, it's going to be a presentation. I'm not going to get started to write a paper. I know what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be about the political form, the politia as a political form. I'm going to talk about it as the concept of that in terms of what it is, in terms of things, and why it is useful for contemporary political ideas in that sense. That's kind of what I need to go look at and kind of pull something up and pull some parts together and make the presentation. And then I have to start getting together. I have done some secondary literature on the four minor political changes, two pieces of legislation, and two things that led to the change of America, the kind of political matter change of the population dynamics, and the political dynamics at the state levels and the communities that changed the American character, the Constitution of America. This is it's mostly written now. I just need to add some footnotes and some secondary scholarship into it just to support my claims, about the four acts and how the political effects of them, and add maybe about a couple, maybe just add some footnotes, add some reference citations. I got the articles. I found about 20 articles I found that support what I've done, and I just have to add some more little, fill it up a little more, and send it to the Better Journal. I think I'll do it to the Constitution Journal. We'll see. I have to look at the existing journal to see what they want. I may send something to this other journal simply because it's almost ready. I have to rework a little bit my forced fraud thing. I need to do that. I have not done that. I've been busy doing university nonsense. And then the other thing I need to do is my paper that's going to be due in the end of September. It seems, not October as I thought, the beginning of October. It's going to be due at the end of September, so I need to rush. And it's about Aristotle's political anthropology. So I might talk about this with you. I've been thinking, I actually, when I'm sleeping, about falling asleep, this is when I start thinking about things I should write. Sometimes it's not good for me when it's like I dream essays in that sense. I dream the essays of what I should be writing and how I should be working at it. Okay, that's just the message. I'm sorry, it beat me. That's my Norwich. I'm starting next week on Norwich, and this Monday I'm doing my Norwich class, which I do diplomatic history, where we look at the origins of statecraft and the origins of the modern state, and the way things like sovereignty, things like state entities, state structures, and the emergence of the Westphalian system, and how diplomacy emerges, how interstate interactive diplomacy. We look at the origins pre-modern world, then feudal world, then basically short time. We'll just kind of quickly address the pre-modern world. So my Norwich course is going to be fun. I only have 2 students, so that's kind of. I wish I had more. So Norwich University is a very good program, but it's and it has no GRE requirement, so that it takes anyone who pays. So these days, it's almost I almost joke it's almost a diploma mill, even though it does try to be a good. Norwich is a good school, but the nature of what has happened in American higher education is that for online education, they're kind of like saying, "Oh, you don't need to you want to come to online education, you don't necessarily have to get the GRE," and things like that. So. It's not a cheap program, but it's a good program. So I would, those of you who are looking at MAs, you can maybe think about going there. I don't know why. Some people want it for professional reasons. Maybe get those who want to develop their knowledge of things. It's worth doing. It's not a bad program. Yes, some of them are liberals, but it's okay. It's a good program. They kept me there for 20 years, so that says something in itself. In that sense, they can tolerate someone like me that can, a man of the right in that sense, and a critic of internationalism. So, the neoliberal internationalism. Sometimes I'm sympathetic to some aspects of neoliberalism, but in terms of the international system, but I'm not, transnationalism. Yeah, transnational governance. No. That's the recipe for disaster. But economic cooperation among states, that may be useful. There is a kind of liberal peace theory, and that there is a aspect to that. But then there's a kind of stupidity of it also. So okay, that's what I was thinking about that course. But back to my paper. I'm sorry I went off on that line about Norwich simply because I got that beep message, and it freaked me out when I get a beep message and those kind of things. What about the anthropology paper, Aristotle's political anthropology? I've been really dreaming about it because it's basically going to be this. I'm not going to make a new paper because this is a paper. This is basically a journal issue dealing on political anthropology. And they want to, for the Polish journal, the major Polish political theory journal, invited them to give a paper to talk about political anthropology. And I said, okay, they invited me to do Aristotle. So I did Aristotle. I'm going to look at Claude Court, and actually, I know a lot of this because, I do Politics 1, and, and as you know, we've been doing the ethics, so that's questionable. That's the question of justice, and we're finishing up book 5 right now currently on my recordings. I have only 2 more chapters in 5 before I turn to the intellectual virtues in book 6. So I'm a little bit of a couple weeks. I'm basically next week and the week after that basically done. So I have some leeway. I might take some. Next week will be a video week. I'll make a lot of videos. Maybe this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, Monday. But Cons Lords, famous piece that's in the Lord and O'Connor's classic essays on Aristotelian political science. I have, that long book. This is from it's published in 1990. What it was 1991. I remember this when this came out, and the introduction, even though the chapter is Sawkeever's first chapter, Aristotle's Social Science. Chapter 2 is Aristotle's Anthropology by Connor's Lord. And this was always a great book in that sense. So I'm going to basically work off of Lord's anthropology piece and then talk about the other scholarship since then. But then introduce my themes. And my themes are what is the basic thrusting about Aristotle's political anthropology. What's straightforward? Aristotle's political anthropology has basically, I would argue, three dimensions. The first dimension is the political animals, okay, that the nature of man as the political animal and the implication of what does that mean. And that is that it's not only humans, what we call intersociality and dependence on people and teams, and the idea of the role of koinonia, how koinonia or community manifests itself in a certain way, but then how the entity of it. So that's one aspect. So it's the nature of the political animal question that basically addresses three subordinate claims itself. The natural, what do you call it? The and I don't mean what is meant by human society, not society, but societal. When I say society, it has a problem with words like society and the way humans interact with each other and work in groups. Okay, this team is a weird thing because it's small. See, I mean, we have the whole problem. In English, it's a problem of English. It is. I would prefer to use the word community, but the word community also, it's the framing of community, right? That's the right structure, the framing of community. So therefore, how does community emerge? How does koinonia emerge? Human koinonia. And the range of koinonia, right? That's one aspect. Two, that the naturalness of the city, the naturalness of the political form, and the connection of the political form. And the third level of the first criteria, the political animal question is maybe it is. There's two dimensions in that one. Okay, what could be a third dimension? Could be there's two dimensions within the first criteria. The political animal. One is the how does human koinonia emerge? Its variations, its forms. The polis as a natural entity, construction in that sense, how it is by nature in that way, in that sense. Then the next question is the political. Okay, so that's political animal. Man is political animal. That's one aspect. The other question of the anthropology is man as or human beings as a moral animal in that sense, a justice animal, and the connections of friendship, the necessity of friendship, economy, and justice in that sense. That is, I think, is a useful thing. That man is this entity that requires reciprocal relationships, reciprocity, and the essentialness of reciprocity for the effect of justice that makes human communities possible in that sense. So therefore the role of reciprocity in that sense, and the role of justice in a sense. And that's why man is a moral animal in that sense, or ethical animal in that sense. You could say man is an ethical, moral animal in that sense, that we concern ourselves with justice and the question of the good and the beneficial, right? It's not only just mere life, it's not just life, it's the goal of living together in community is not simply survival, but living well, living beautifully. The question of eudaimonia and flourishing, right? So that's the other thing in that sense. So that's the second dimension. And the third dimension is the nature of the political community. The political community is is an aggregate made of other aggregates. Okay, the interconnection of aggregates, and the connection of, in other words, that it's the polis is not a unitary whole; it is a whole constructed of parts. So other initial parts are households, and the households themselves will vary on different types, so that there won't be a kind of uniformity. It's a kind of a diverse model of interactivity. So it's a discrete model of discrete parts that interact, and that there is this ordering, and hence the role of the politeia in ordering it. Okay, so therefore that is why that's what's so interesting about the anthropology of the regime, that the regime itself is kind of it's a mechanism of ordering, a discrete mechanism, which is completely different than the modern understanding of the role of individualized, the constructing of political construction based on human willing, in other words, the constituting power of the members. In other words, the willing constituting power of members. In other words, the idea that the political form is a thing constituted by the willing of all the members that form it. Okay, that is the modern construction, the Hobbesian, post-Hobbesian construction of this. And this is the opposite of Aristotle. It's not a willing; it is mere the formation of a community in the sense. It is the fact that this people live together and share a life together. That it is the doing, not the willing, in this sense. And that's the difference in that aspect of here, and that is uniqueness of Aristotle's. That is the difference between ancients and moderns in that sense, between living and being and death, and therefore the willing forms a homogeneous system. In other words, like the will has a homogenization process. It's a unitary construct. It becomes a homogeneous unitary structure, and universalizing as well. So therefore, that's the nature of the modern sovereign will. Is a unit that comes together, unifies, but that once the will unifies the logic of wills. In other words, what do you call a will that has multiple personalities or multiple wills? That kind of the wills must, for will to be stable and unifying, you must have homogeneity. You must have a thing, and that's the difference in a sense. The Greeks understood that it's going to be not a unitary. It is not a construction of the individuals forming a unitary general will in the sense, in the language of Aristotle. Rather, there's no general will in this sense. Rather, what emerges is a consensus based on what the various, not everyone, but it's going to be mostly the ruling part, the part that's strongest, the dominant. It can be just by might, by power, or by consensus, or that is the ruling part. What part is ruling? What part of the community is authoritative, normative in that sense? And that is the gist of what I think I would write my paper on in that sense. The flushes out. I have to do it under 40,000 characters. So that's going to be a bit chip, it's going to be restrained, because it's very easy if you start doing this out. It ends up being you're running problems. I can do something very short. I'm very good at making short things. By short, I mean like a 2-page, 1-page, 3-page kind of summary. I'm very good at that. But then when I get into detail and argument, I get it gets bigger out of my control. It becomes over 30 pages. So that's that. That's the political Aristotle's political anthropology thing. Now, someone's going to say to me, "Well, where is that? Why aren't you?" I don't know. I'm just looking at that from the point of view of me being a complete ass and not getting to this quicker enough. I looked at many things earlier. This political anthropology. It's you look at Aristotle's thing here, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on? well, that's it. I did recordings. I'm uploading the recordings for things for people, and then the university is doing its little job. Oh yeah, what I did this Tuesday, I did an interview with Lori Johnson. Lori and I went to school. Lori has a YouTube channel. She's been doing it at least for 6 years, maybe a little longer, on YouTube. She teaches at Kansas State University, I think Leavenworth, or State, Kansas State University. And what's so interesting about this is that she's been on YouTube. We both went to Northern Illinois. She wrote under Larry. She wrote on Hobbes's Thucydides and the question of Hobbes's translation of Thucydides and the way Thucydides and Hobbes kind of interacted with each other. And that she's written 2 books on Hobbes. I mean, she wrote a book by Routledge on Hobbes, I think, on Leviathan, I think. Kind of like the Understanding Leviathan. And then she wrote a book for Roman Littlefield on Hobbes on honor. And then wrote a book on Locke and Rousseau on honor. That was her last. I'm not sure if there's any other book in that sense. It's been one of those weird aspects of here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's the journal is political theory. Yeah, it's Polish journal, and I really, really, really thought I'd have it done. I had till October, but it's the beginning of September. I can get this done. This is not going to be a major problem. I think the problem is it's not on. It's something outside of my normal doing. So that's the thrust of the problem there. What is going on? How to handle it. And therefore, this is why I did I talked about you guys about what I'm going to be doing for that paper. What else? There's not much to do in recordings. I'm going to be finishing up Aristotle's Ethics. We're doing those things. That's going to be the thrust of the recording issue. My interview with Lori Johnson was very interesting. It was about Aristotle and why I did study Aristotle and things like this. I probably will, when she posts it, I'll find out when she posts it. She does this for kind of an online learning thing also, the Maureen Academy or something like that. And she's been doing things like this for them and learning groups. And so we had a good talk about Aristotle, things that I'm doing there and like that, and that the political theory, and responded to her questions. Another thing is, hopefully, and maybe in a month or so, we'll do another interview. But I'm going to be busy. I'm doing, like I said, teaching 5 courses with supervising some theses, which I had to do some shock therapy. We have a visiting professor coming in, American guy who does presidential communication, Fulbright visiting professor guy, typical liberal. But he did study with George Carey. So he's like my age, maybe a little older. Studied with George Carey, had a course with Walter Burns, Georgetown PhD. Was teaching at Mary Washington University in the political science department there. So he's a typical American academic. He's here for the semester, so that's kind of okay in that sense. He's a Fulbrighter, so he has kind of luxury in that sense. What do I have to say about this? He does political communication, and he has all the biases of an American academic PhD. That teaching at a school was moderately liberal, typical liberal biases. Or maybe more we could say Rhino. Not Rhino. I'm not sure. I think he's going to be typical liberal in that sense. I think he says, that's you don't survive that thing and be in a school like that, and if you're not kind of a liberal in that sense, or at least agreeing with the middle class attitude. So that is kind of an interesting. We'll see what happens. I kind of was in a cranky mood yesterday for our meetings. That was weird because after the meeting, I had to go to my class. I had to go to this party. My wife decided to have me come home by Uber, so that was an adventure. So that's academic life in that sense, the modern academic life. We had a conference thing. I had too many coffees last night at the event. Too many cappuccinos, man. No food, and we came home by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, so the academic stuff is, life is, what do you call it? The social life of academia is kind of a funny thing. It's where fantasy worlds collide. Okay, we're at the half-hour mark, and we had 2 people. They left. I think they're tired of this, and I don't blame them in that sense. This is not much to talk about. One of the things that what am I even readings? Not really. I've got Seneca. I've been reading some Seneca just for fun, just to kind of get into the question of anger, the question of care. I'm waiting for my friend. I think we're not going to even start doing the love, the political form of love, until after I think I'm going to try to talk my friend into doing something. My friend Shelley, into thinking about. We have an article together published like 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, not a year ago, but 23, 22, maybe 22, 23. I think it's 22. Where on the political forms, where it's kind of a, and I think I might use that as the kind of guiding frame to do a book. A little book on the political form. And I need to ask him about that because we'd like to do a book. I said, we can do the book on political form. Maybe get 1 or 2 persons, 1 or 2 people else to kind of give a paper, and that we could just get a little book on the political form, the forms of political, the forms of rule, we'll call it, the forms of rule. And look at the question of the political form. I might have an essay or 2. I have the essay we jointly did, and if we're going to be working on the Augustine on love and care, that'll be a good article for that to be put with it. And then maybe have an article on friendship in that sense, philia, and that's to talk to someone who wants to do it about philia, and then just do it a volume in that sense. I think I can do it maybe not publish it through the university political science faculty in that sense. It might be worthwhile doing in that sense. I want to finish my own book on political regimes, but that's going to take a while. I'm not going to make my deadline. I was hoping to get some deadlines on this year, but I am looking at myself and looking at things. I think I'll need to have a sabbatical year. I'm going to have to really think about a sabbatical year to get that book done. I think I will have to have a sabbatical year. Asking for it may not be easy to get, because last time I had a sabbatical year, I had my health emergency, which ruined it. I was going to crown it and have everything done, but then I had a early health emergency in the summer, which was mild, but it was still had some issues, and I think I really didn't recover. I was still suffering from it when we went to America and the heat just hit me. And that's when I had my real, it's 2 weeks in hospital, 1 week in critical care, and I survived it. Okay, that really knocked me out and unrailed me, and then those other issues. So that is the structure of, what I need to do. The Aristotle regime book is I have to finish 2 parts of book. I have to really decide about what to do about chapter Book 5, chapter 10 and 11. Do I treat it within the book or treat it separately? I think I'll treat it separately. I think it'll make a little book on its own. Aristotle's regime, Aristotle's Prince, call it, a treatment of this. I think that would be a good book, a little teeny book. Then the regime science will focus on the regime. So we're going to take out. I'm going to even say that in the book. I'm going to say I'm going to say one of the things is this count of book 5 and book 6. Book 5 I'm removing the treatment of monarchy because it is a minor book. It is kind of like it is the structure of book 5. The chapter, he doesn't. In other words, there is a logic to the book that all of a sudden he breaks it. Now, he promises he's going to do something, but then he treats monarchy completely separate from the regimes, the politeia. Okay, he does the variations, the 3 chapters on the variations, 3 chapters on the variations, or how regime needs, how change varies on. I call that the regime as variable. The regime has variable political change, and then he has 2 chapters on preservation regimes. Where you'd expect to maybe have 3 chapters like that, but no, preservation doesn't have a. You have a. I mean, book 5 is weird. You have a discussion. You have 4 chapters. That is, you have basically 3 chapter introduction and the general change, with the 4th chapter being kind of wrapping up the general change, and then you have the regime variable, looking at the way the different regimes will introduce change. So change through the lens of regimes, right? How each regime will change. He does democracy, oligarchy, and then he combines aristocracy and regime, right? But then he doesn't then bring about discussion of monarchy and tyranny. He doesn't do that. Now, why does he do that? Why does he wait? And then he goes right after that. After that, he talks about generation, general principles of preservation. So no general discussion. He only gives us 2 chapters on the question of preservation, which is weird. That is the first thing. Why isn't there an echo on change? He gives such a big thing on metabae, but no discussion of. It's a very, very almost non-existent discussion of a general theory of. There's no real general theory of this. He gives a general count. He says he's going to give a general count, and then he gives it that. But it's the general count is a chapter, which is based, and then instead of giving us really specific regimes, he gives specifics. But the thing, it's all together. It's 1 chapter, not 3 chapters, echoing the 3 chapters we had on different regimes and how the way regime will change. Different specific regimes lead to specific change. So you have a disconnect here, very big disconnect. And then you have at chapter 10 and 11, you have this massive discussion about the chapter 10 is how regimes will change, in other words, deviate, and how revolution occurs and negative change happens, and first monarchy, then tyranny. And then what you have is the next chapter 11 is preserving monarchies. There is kingship, the question of kingship. And then there's 2 accounts of preserving tyranny. Okay. There is a traditional way, the negative, this is the way things usually done. And then his own reform way, which kind of echoes what Xenophon presents in his On Tyranny, the famous book, On Hero, or On Tyranny. A philosophic defense of tyranny, right, in that sense, right? And I mentioned it before that this is when, I mentioned that, I'm not going to get to the point of the Greek itself. The Greek itself is very weird at that chapter. And then chapter 12 wraps up the length of, in other words, the survivability of, it is mostly just tyrannies. Tyrannies don't survive long, he says. So these are the regimes that are not going to survive. I mean, he gives a history of kind of lasting. So the question is, does that really belong in chapter thing? And I don't think so. I think it's a question of longevity. And he's going to suggest that, well, most going to be like this, but tyrannies tend to do this, will tend to collapse. And the tyrannies are, the question then, the tyrannies, are they unified or are they not unified? Because one could argue that the extreme democracy and the extreme that is treated as tyranny is tyrannical also, but that the treatment of tyranny in chapter 5 and chapter 6 of book 5, chapter 10 and 11 of book 5 is a really account of not political rule but monarchy as a whole, or a rule simply in that sense. That's why I call it Aristotle's France. So it's a very frustrating. It is very frustrating to kind of look at that and treat that in that sense. Now, there's not going to be much of an audience today, I think. It's March 1st. We're 40 minutes into it, so I think people are looking at saying, well, and my tone is kind of like, boring, not that active. But that's Aristotle's regime science problem. So I have to look at the question of chapter 12 is going to be about Aristotle's critique of Plato's cycle and all cycles. So there's two issues: longevity and cycles, and the claim that is there an order? Do regimes have cycles? And Aristotle's claim is no, they don't have set cycles. It's and in fact the Greek word would be, what was it? This is that. What is that? Anaculus and Cyclosis. Anaculus. Can't ever get that word right. I can't say these. I know the word. I look at the word here. Here's the word in Greek. Here's my little gnome. Here is the word in Greek. This is the cycle of regimes. That this is what Plutarch calls it, and I think it's even kind of mentioned like this. And this is that cycle of regimes in Republic. And you don't get now in the laws. You don't get a cycle of regimes. You get a cycle of civilization, right? And that famous chapter, book three of the laws. So you get a cycle in the laws, you get a cycle in regimes and politeia in Aristotle's Republic. Plato's Republic, you get this famous cycle of regimes, and I think it's book 7 and 8. Book 7 and 8. Yeah, I think it's getting old and to have to rely on my memory. It's not a good thing. That's always the pain in the ass. Yeah, it's 8 and 9. That's what he ends up, 8 and 9. Book 8 and 9, that is the cycle of very famous idea of that. There's this whole argument in social cycle theory, right? You have the cycle. This is a theory of cycles. This is, Kilokis cycle, Kilokis. Now, later, it's first Plato, and now he says, they often say Aristotle does, but Aristotle kind of says, no, that's not the case. Aristotle doesn't think there's going to be a cycle in this sense. Polybius is more of Mr. Cycle. Anna Seculus is in his work, and Cicero talks about in his De Republica. But we have to remember De Republica was lost until the 19th century. And Machiavelli, in his laws, is the guy who adopts Polybius. So Polybius is the big guy who does this concept of cycles. So therefore, this is, and then the 20th century, 19th, 20th century is Carlyle, right? So that's the big Carlyle. That's the guy. I was talking with Laurie Johnson. We're talking about this. I'm talking about we're talking about what's his name, Curtis Yarvin, on his influence on academic agent. And I think I was trying to kind of get the name, and it was driving me crazy. I couldn't recall his name. Because Yarvin goes about both Pardini and this love Carlyle, and I've never took. I said to Laurie, I said Carlyle for me is kind of like third rate Rousseau. He is basically a very, he's a romantic. He's a reaction to the romantic. He is basically kind of what happens after Rousseau and Hegel. Really third-rate thinker. Now, I'm going to get in trouble with this. I know people say, "Oh my God, Carlyle is great." Yeah, because he's really based, man, based. No, I can't take great man theory. No, but I have nothing wrong with great men. I think great men are important. I think the ancients did this. The way I like Plutarch. Plutarch tells us the importance of actors. Yes, the individual actors are important, but at the same time, this idea of the great man makes history. I think, yes, actors do matter in that sense, but I think he overstates that. In fact, sometimes the great man can be the obstacle to certain things. So I've always had a problem with, and this is why I could never take Yarvin's treatment about this. Is always like I struggle reading. I know Yarvin is probably Curtis Yarvin is a very intelligent person. He's as a person who's advanced mathematics mind. He's not dumb. He's not a moron. He's not an idiot. He's very intelligent. He understands. He was successful in business in that sense, and being his technical knowledge, he's technically knowledge. But when he talks about political things, he's an amateur in this sense, and he has some good ideas. His discussion of he brings kind of a Gramscian hegemonic vision in here in his teaching. This is where I have to really spend some time looking at how he misapplied. You can see this is the thing. There's something about he gets something from Gramsci in the Italian school. Then, because remember, Gramsci is kind of the pinnacle of the Italian school. He is that moment of the left wing embracing of the Italian school of like Mosca, Pareto, and Yang. And then there's this whole like Bobbio and those guys who follow from Gramsci and more left-wing position of the Italian social theory. But I saw this book about this. Was someone writing about the book of social theory, talking about Bobbio and Gramsci and Italian social theory. That's been available. It was long out of print. Okay, it's worthwhile doing that. But again, I like the Italian social theory. I'm a big fan of Pareto and Mosca and Michaels. But I also understand that they are not always the kind of radical. I mean, it's a more nuanced position than way Yarvin presents it in that sense. And then what he does, this is my problem. I don't want to go on this. This is something I would have to spend more time trying to read Yarvin, and I can't. I just fall asleep. I fall asleep. I get kind of like bored with it very quickly. I get on my tab. I see the problem. He has all his writings were basically blog pieces, and I read them, and I said, yeah, okay, interesting book. And then he I bought some of his Kindle things, putting it Kindle things. It was like it's sloppy. I mean, as a person who has struggles with writing, also, I understand that okay, I shouldn't complain about that, but it's I mean, there's something visceral there that I have to struggle with in that, and it's pretentious. There's a pretentiousness in it that turns me off into a degree. I mean, I think you need to be a little more humble. The person, not humble, but okay, being this kind of thing, there is an arrogance in it. Okay, there is an arrogance when you study these questions. There is kind of you need to have a certain confidence to address these things, but at the same time, you have to have some kind of maybe I don't know this. I mean, maybe that's the Socratic humility. There's a little bit of saying maybe what I need to. I maybe I'm wrong. Usually it doesn't happen, but sometimes it does happen, but it's rare. But but once I got to a point where I know what I know, there is kind of a situation where you're not going to get any further. Okay, that is kind of the day today. I just didn't want to go to that. So why did I bring up Yarvin today? And also Carlyle. Well, again, this cycle of history, the cycle of things that matters. It is the kind of thing that I have to end my regime theory on. I have to address that last chapter, or Aristotle's critique of cycles. And that is anti-Machiavelli. This is where Aristotle and Machiavelli will disagree, I think. I think book 10, book 5, chapter 12, where he gives the criticism of the cycle theory, is very kind of saying this in cycle. It's not simple cycles. There's not a cycle in the sense that regimes will change and they'll change. They'll have patterns, but the patterns are set by the macro forces that are within the given political dynamic of the given country. And there is not one set of pattern for everything. There are patterns, but the patterns will depend upon it's not a uniform pattern for everything. The patterns will depend on certain regimes as they devolve or crisis in certain situations will move in certain directions. Yes, that is happening, but there's no one set pattern. There is, if certain things, there is uniformity if certain conditions occur and certain situations and certain regimes, if certain situations occur, certain patterns will emerge. Okay, but it's not a one-size-fit-all model of cycle. Okay, and I think that is, and it's not an inevitability that all regimes go in a certain cycle. Okay, whereas there is that kind of inevitability in the Platonic and Plutarchian, not Plutarchian, but a Polybian model, and the Machiavelli model also. And maybe isn't that the whole thing about cyclical history? The question of cyclical history, that if there's cycles, then there's inevitability, or even the question of, or is inevitability merely linear, like in the Hegelian cycle? It is kind of a big issue. The question of, is history cyclical or linear? And that is as much a question of ontology and physics as it is a philosophy in that sense. This is the question of the universe, and theological too. The question is it's ontological, theological, ontological. It's theo-ontological, theological and ontological aspects of things. The question of God and whether the will of God is it internal, or is therefore history a merely providential action of willing of divine God, or is simply that the gods themselves are subject to history in that sense? And is history eternality, or is it and therefore eternality, and therefore humans will have, or the creatures will have cycles within eternality, right? In that sense, right? That's the Big Bang, Big Crunch problem in physics, right? that is there a universe where there's, in terms of the cosmos itself, including the known universe, that is there an eternality of being in that sense, and that the whole structure of existence is this continuing cycle of coming into being, perishing away. Right. That is the fundamental question at that level. That drives philosophy crazy in that sense. For political things, it's about the question of regimes, and that's why it's a very tough theme. We're at the mark. We're at nearly an hour, and I think I'll call short. I will call an audible. Okay, we'll see what happens. I don't want to go too far today, and there's not many people here. There's no one here now. People came, people went. No one's in the chat. So we'll call that an evening today. I'm sorry if I'm not that really rah, because no one asked me to do talk. I mean, I was hoping someone was going to send me a message and say, hey, why don't you talk about this? I really liked my discussion with Lori Johnson. I hope that she's going to get her released. The video will get released sometime in a week or so. Because she edits stuff. Okay, she edits stuff. I'm not an editor in that sense. And I don't really know how to edit these suckers. If I did, I'd make better ones. You can see my Aristotle stuff over there, my notepads and notes and things I've been working on over there today. You can see some chaos over there. We had company last weekend. A friend of mine who visited us, and we had this kind of some stuff, and it kind of. My wife said, "Oh, you have events." Okay, whatever. I have an event. We're just waiting on this, and we're going to be calling it an evening now. Okay, take care, everyone. If you like the video, please like it. I don't know. It's going to be kind of a low audience, low intensity thing. If you liked it, like it. Hit the like button. If you didn't like it, you can always say negative. Boring day, boring. Thumbs down, man. Thumbs down, really. Thumbs down. Say why in the comments. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe. I encourage others to subscribe. Again, this is kind of a low energy performance on my part. I apologize. I hope to see you guys again next time. You can follow me on social media. Links are below. The academic social media below. Learn more about my academic social media below. And my the academic social media will show you my scholarship and things like that. Then you can also want to help me. You can do so. Subscribe star or buy one of the books. They're listed there below, either by your local bookstore or through a bookstore like Amazon or something like that. Well, I'll let you go. I hope you all have a great day and a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye. See you later.